Hello, and welcome. So I went into HMV yesterday and I purchased a vinyl deal, which I wasn't sure I was actually ever going to do. So yesterday I got up really early. The idea of the morning was to go to a car boot. So I got up really early in the morning, 7, which is very early for me. And I went to this car boot sale. Now, this was a really new car boot sale. I think this is literally like the second or third week of the boot sale being a thing. So I went there and it was kind of sad, to be honest. There were like 3 stalls, 3 people selling stuff. There was an ice cream van at 7 in the morning, because why not? Probably about 10 people there. It was honestly kind of surreal. It was a bit post-apocalyptic. There was a couple of people with records on their stalls, but they were total rubbish records. And I really felt sorry for this guy, bless him, because he was being really enthusiastic, and he said to me, "Oh, all the records are £1, son. Yeah, they're all £1. And these are £1, and these CDs are £1." But it was all really bad stuff, and I just felt really bad for him. And I just said, "Oh, right, okay." But in my head, I was kind of thinking, mate, like, these records, you're not gonna sell these records, man. These belong in the bin. I don't know why he'd even bothered to cart them along to a boot sale, because nobody would buy these records. We're talking like Mrs. Mills and all of those kind of guys. So anyway, I spent about 10 minutes at the car boot, explored what there was to explore, which wasn't a lot. Took me like 3 minutes probably to look around it all. And yeah, I thought, you know what, I'm out and about now, I may as well pop into town. So I went into town, and because this was so early in the morning, it was also pretty eerie. All the shops were shut down. HMV hadn't opened yet. They just had the big ugly barriers on all of the shop fronts. But anyway, yeah, I popped into HMV shortly after, and there was one record in there which I kind of particularly wanted, which was on this deal. So I tried to find a few more records on the deal and, get it a little bit cheaper than everywhere else. So anyway, the deal that I'm talking about was, it's 3 vinyl records for £66. Now, when I first heard about this deal, I thought it was absolutely absurd, just not a deal at all, just ridiculous. Before this, the deal had been 3 records for £55, which is a lot more reasonable. £18 for a record is far more reasonable. Me and my friend Asa used to take them up on that deal a lot. And both of us have gotten a lot of records from HMV from that deal. And I remember finding out about this like the day that it happened, and I texted Asa, and he said that he genuinely nearly cried, like, hearing about this. Like, it brought a tear to a grown man's eye. That is how greedy HMV can be. Essentially, this deal has basically just gotten worse over time. I remember probably about 6 years ago, maybe, the deal was 2 records for £30, and I think also 3 for £45. And I remember getting so many records at 2 for £30, like getting like Joy Division Unknown Pleasures and Air Moon Safari, and loads of classic albums, even double albums like Plastic Beach by Gorillaz and Californication by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I remember picking all these up, £15 a piece, £7 a record, now that's proper value. Yeah, and then it became 3 for £55, again, not bad, and now 3 for £66, which, honestly, it seems absolutely ridiculous, right? It to be honest, if I'm being frank, it's not a deal. It's just bang on average. £22 for a record, that's not a deal. That is just bog standard average price, maybe even a little bit overpriced, I would argue. But I suppose you've got to take it into context. It's relatively okay for today's standards. I mean, when you go on Amazon, you go on any website, you go to any shop, 99% of records are like £25 now, £30, £35, £45. So when you put it in that context of how ridiculous overpriced records have gotten virtually everywhere now, £22 for a nice, sealed 180 gram record isn't too bad. You might see it cheaper elsewhere if you look around long enough. The principle with me is that they call it a deal because it's not a deal. It's a deal only with the context of how grossly overpriced everything else in HMV is. Every other record in there. I mean, something ridiculous. When I was out the other day buying these, I saw Synchronicity by The Police. It was £31, but it was originally £55. Like, I don't want to get into the whole politics of this, but what has gone wrong with the world for a single record, to cost £55 fucking pounds? Records have always been very expensive, in the 80s they were very expensive. I mean, I recently found an original copy of Michael Jackson's Dangerous, and on the sleeve it's got a sticker saying $9.99 HMV, and when you look at that price, from 1991, adjusted for inflation, today, that's about £23, I think. In other words, virtually exactly the same. I mean, if it was actually a new album today, they would probably ask more than that. But yeah, it's just particularly bad at the moment with, records at £45, £55. So yeah, 3 for £66. It's not a good deal. It's not a bad deal. It's just normal. So the main reason I did go for this deal was there's one record in there which I really wanted and couldn't find it in many other shops. And I thought, well, I've got some spare money at the moment. I got paid by that record shop. They paid me really well. And I've still got money left over from that. So if I can find 2 other records at £22 a piece, you know what? I'll just do it. I will pay £22 for a record if it's one I really want and I know it's a good one. I would just kind of prefer to pay sort of 15. These days you don't have that much choice. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into the records. I was digging through the crates and I found this bad boy, The Strokes, with The New Abnormal. So I remember getting into this record around the very beginning of 2021. I remember seeing it a lot on year-end lists, like the best albums released in the year 2020, which had just gone. And this popped up over and over again. So I thought, oh, right, okay, I better check it out. Pretty much just got into it instantly, really. I always thought it was a good album. And I've been contemplating buying this vinyl since that time. The only problem that people have said about this, they say obviously the album's great and the pressing sounds great as well. But a lot of people have complained about the packaging. So we'll soon see what that's like. I think the deal with this is that you have like a really large poster. This artwork was done by like a famous artist from the 80s. I can't remember his name.
Jean-Michel
Basquiat. So yeah, I think the deal with it is that this is like part of a much larger poster, I believe, and then it's sealed within like a plastic sleeve, and which has the album title written on it. And then there's like another sleeve with the record in it. So let's crack this bad boy open and see what it's like. Got me yellow scissors, which are very similarly yellow to this yellow banana. Go, you cheeky monkey! You always got to find the right place to make a little slit in the old shrink, because you don't want to be sort of cutting little holes in the packaging. Oh, it's open. Right. We put the scissors away. Let's get into this. So yeah, like as I say, I was on Discogs looking at this, a few years ago when I first discovered it, and a lot of people were kind of saying, don't like the packaging one bit. Oh, okay. So it's kind of like Pink Floyd The Wall, where they have the artwork and then you have the bit written on the artwork. You know the sticker that says The Wall. It's a bit like that. So we have this sleeve here. So you have so that's the main artwork, the big sheet there. And then from that point, we've got, the big poster. Yeah. Ooh, lovely smell. I like that really fresh paper smell. As well as the really aged paper smell that you get with old records. Right. Hang on, what else we got in here? So, this isn't as bad as what people say. So, just a classic card in a sleeve there. Nice clean record there. This was released on RCA and also Cult Records. Yeah, I like that. It's quite old-fashioned, that, with the record label written on it. And then the outer sleeve is quite cool because you don't need to apply an outer sleeve to it. So, yeah, it's like a plastic sleeve and then with like a sticker just applied to it going all the way around, and then it sort of straps on there, as you can see what happens there. So yeah, I mean, it's not the best in the world, but it's okay. There's a few imperfections on my copy. It's actually got quite a few air bubbles, and the way the sticker's been applied isn't quite perfect, but that doesn't really bother me. Let's just pop this all back. So yeah, the packaging is not too bad. It's quite unique, actually. Never really seen this on a record release, this exact kind of thing. Getting into the sort of nitty-gritty of the record. Hang on, just referring back to my notes. So this is kind of often considered to be the Strokes' third best record, because the first 2 Strokes albums are pretty legendary, in indie rock circles. Everybody knows the first 2 Strokes records. And then they did a bunch of albums, a series of albums where they kind of ventured off and did different kinds of sounds, which didn't quite resonate with people in the same way and didn't quite hit the same. But those first 2 records, incredibly influential, incredibly classic albums. But funnily enough, I think this is actually my personal favourite album by the Strokes. I think it's just a personal favourite of mine. I like it. It's got a really kind of live, raw and spontaneous sound. It feels very unpretentious. It just feels like a bunch of guys in a room playing the music and doing what they love, and not trying to be anything that they're not. And from that, they kind of like accidentally created this absolute masterpiece of an album, and it's very impressive. How good it is very impressive, considering this came out virtually 20 years after the first album. So you got to give it to them. It's really impressive they were able to do a record that is as good as this that late into a career. Most bands don't do that. It's only the likes of kind of Radiohead and people like that are still doing great records sort of 20 years after the initial run of great records. One of my favourite songs is At the Door, which is really different for them, different kind of sound to their usual garage rock, indie rock kind of sound. That reminds me of MGMT a little bit, with some of the sonic experimentation that you hear on that track and vocal effects. And I also really like the song Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus. That actually kind of reminds me of Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive, at least in terms of the chord progression. There's a lot of pastiches on this record, references to classic pop songs, and they actually use the melodies of a lot of classic pop songs on this record, which for me adds to the unpretentious vibe. And funnily enough, this was one of the last new albums that I got into. I just don't like a lot of newer music. Maybe there is a lot of really good new music coming out, but from my perspective, from what I've listened to, a lot of the new stuff just feels like these young new people just doing a crappy modern version of the original stuff. They're not new doing their own thing. They're just kind of copying the old stuff, but doing it in a way worse way. And they're all just a bunch of pretentious idiots in my opinion. There are no more heroes anymore, but that's a beautiful thing in a way, because it makes you appreciate the old stuff so much more that it is gone now, Give me a swig of that tea. I'm having a peanut cookie. This little object, this little shape up the top here, always makes me think of a cap, which adds to the hip and happening feeling of this album. I remember when I first listened to this album in early 2021. I remember it was very dark. It was the beginning of the year, and I was walking around a lot in the dark and in the frozen snow and stuff. And I remember I was eating a lot of Special K at the time. I was really into Special K because I was really into Fortet with his album Rounds, and I found out that Fortet eats a lot of Special K.
Oh shit, I've run out of Special K.
Yeah, I would walk around listening to that record and Fortet Rounds, then I would come home and eat some Special K and watch an episode of EastEnders. So the next record, which is the reason why I did the deal, is Björk with Debut. So this is the final instalment in the Björk trilogy, the first three albums, the holy trinity of Björk albums, in my opinion. I just adore those first three albums from Björk. Nothing that she's done has wowed me the way that those first three records did. It's just the 90s kind of electro dance vibe that they had just does it for me. Essentially, this album is like one of the greatest dance albums of all time. It's dance perfection. Very much like that sound of the early 90s dance stuff. So we're talking, Soul to Soul, Black Box, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, The Shaman, Snap, 2 Unlimited. It's like all of that stuff, but better, because Björk is a musical genius. You got a beautiful photograph of Michael Jackson on the cover. Only joking! No, joking. I actually think this is a very strong image, of Björk. It's a powerful statement. It's a very simple but striking, powerful kind of iconic image that Björk used for this debut album. It's so recognisable, very poster-esque. I suppose this album is very rebellious in a way, because even calling the album Debut is kind of divorcing herself from everything she did before. Particularly the childhood album that she did. When she was about 11, she had a very popular album in Iceland as kind of a child star. And then, of course, she did, all the punk bands and the Sugar Cubes. But this is her kind of almost divorcing herself from all that stuff that she was involved with and saying, right, this is me. This is the real me. And it's really her coming out of her shell and showing the world what she's really about and her true creativity. I watched an interview she did around the time of this album, and she explained that she's not a singer. A lot of people think that she's just like a singer. She's not a singer. She's a music maker. She's a musical genius who happens to also sing, and her voice being a big part of her musical oeuvre. So this record was produced by Nelly Hooper, who was part of Massive Attack originally. It was a really nice sort of marriage of two creative minds coming together, and they did the first two albums together, her and Nelly Nelly Hooper. He did all of the electro beats and whatnot. Track 1 to 10 are produced by Nelly Hooper. Track 5 co-produced by Nelly Hooper and Björk, so she did a bit of production on that track. And track 11 was just produced by Björk. There's a track on this album which I only recently kind of properly discovered. It's a track called Come To Me. It's a very brooding kind of dreamlike delight of a track, and it just makes me feel so embraced. When you listen to it, it makes you feel very embraced and loved by the person that's making it. But it also simultaneously makes me feel like a child being pushed around in a trolley in a supermarket in the 90s. Iceland, if you like. I think it's impossible not to just totally fall in love with Björk when you listen to a record like this. The final track, the Anchor song, kind of reminds me of Sufjan Stevens' Illinois album a little bit. It's got that sort of school band, school orchestra vibe about it.
101 uses for a Björk, number 53.
Your house is on fire!
I do prefer to say Björk instead of Björk. I love the way that name sounds when it's actually said with the accent, you know, Björk, it rhymes with jerk. But when you say it in a British accent, it kind of sounds like someone throwing up, you know. Björk. Björk. Another personal highlight on the album would be Big Time Sensuality, which has got a very tasty gobstopper bass line. And this song was converted into a single, had a totally different mix, which I've got on the vinyl Greatest Hits. And I like the Dawn French parody of this song. So apparently there's a rumour floating around on the internet that they are going to be bringing out a special anniversary edition of this album where it's going to have, you know, bonus tracks and stuff, but the artwork's going to be slightly different because instead of having this cropped image, you're actually going to get the full image. They actually give you like the full image of what this is cropped from, which will be really nice, you know, to have that alternative artwork. I have no doubt that they're going to slap that on some posh vinyl colour, you know, maybe a swirl vinyl or a splatter. God, how much do you reckon old HMV will want for that? $47.99? Probably. I reckon Matthew will lap that shit up quicker than you can scarf down a bag of ready salted Ringos. So let's crack Björk open. Okay, what I quite like to do sometimes is when I'll make the initial incision, I'll sort of get the scissors and then kind of slide it underneath, sort of slide it like that along the thing. It could be quite a satisfying way of opening it. Then I'll do this, and then even then it's still quite hard to pull off, isn't it? I don't really want to do that, so I'll make another cut down the middle. I'm not sure about all the Björk reissues, but the first 3 albums, which are the ones I have, load from the top, which is quite nice. And polylined inner sleeve, can't go wrong with polylined. Yeah, it's always nicer quality when that's there. So yeah, these Björk reissues are really, really nice. You can tell that she puts a lot of effort into these. You know, just really nice sounding. And a lot of reissues can be very dodgy. Even ones I have, like the Depeche Mode Violator reissue isn't the best, and the Cure Disintegration reissue isn't the greatest either. So they can be a bit dodgy, but sometimes they're just marvellous, and they're probably nicer than the original editions, which you have to fork out triple figures for. So the final record in the 3 for 66 deal was AC/DC, Highway to Hell. So I've never owned an AC/DC record before. I do have a 7-inch single from them. Yeah, of course AC/DC are a bit of a one-dimensional band. You know, I quite like music. A lot of the artists that I follow and listen to are artists which kind of provide many, many sound worlds which are very separate from each other. You know, each album almost is a different world. They've got multiple faces, you know, like the Beatles, Radiohead, Gentle Giant, etc., even Björk. But these guys, they do one thing, you know, they're very much a one-trick pony. But what they do is very good. You know, they're very, very good at doing that one sound they do. And I think this is the record where they really came into their own, at least in terms of just getting it really solid and having really good production. This is the first record they did with Robert Mutt Lange. I think the production went up quite a bit. This is proper nice, old school rock sound. You know, just good old hard rock, you know. I have to be in a certain mood to spin this record, but on a hot summer's day, you really cannot go wrong with a bit of AC/DC, as one-sided as they may be. So this particular pressing is the 50th anniversary special edition Hellfire coloured vinyl. Includes unique insert and custom labels. So I'm guessing the labels on the record are actually exclusive to this. Yeah, this isn't the 50th anniversary of the album. I don't even think it's been 50 years since this album came out. But it's 50th anniversary of the band themselves. And the funny thing is this, like, I'm surprised this was in the 3 for 66 deal, because on its own, this cost $39.99, and that's just not HMV that charges that. Like virtually everywhere, this is a £35 record, which is overpriced. So paying £22 for it is a lot better. What I'd quite like to do is I'd quite like to preserve the stickers and put them on the outer sleeve that I use for this. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and attempt to kind of open it so that I can get the records out. Be as gentle with it as I can to try to successfully relocate those stickers. This is taking its time. Right, here we go. Oh, there you go. Just peels away. Right, so... Okay. Oh, wow, look at this. Isn't this nice? Nice big collage of the band. Looking very cheeky there. Right, let's check this record out. Okay. Ooh, look at that. Lovely. Wow, I've never seen a record like this before. I've never seen one that kind of has such a smooth sort of transition from colour to colour. Wow, this looks fantastic, actually. This almost looks like an advert for, like, Thatcher's Blood Orange or something. It's almost like a bloody Mezzomix flavour vinyl. I kind of want to... It's like a lollipop. I want to eat it, you know? It reminds me of something that I would have, like, loved as a child. Like, just fully red in the middle, then you get a bit of orange, and then finally yellow at the edges. It's really cool. I like this a lot. There's a bit of plastic on there. I'm not happy about that. Let's try and blow that off. Oh, there we go, it's gone. Yeah, really nice record there. So I've heard very good reports about this pressing. What I did and what I often do when I'm in HMV is that I'll look at these pressings and I'll scan the barcode on my phone and then bring up the Discogs page on discogs.com, and I'll look what people are saying about the particular pressing. Of course, it's not entirely reliable because, you know, people have different tastes of what a pressing should sound like, and they also have... You know, everybody's setup is different, and different things might sound different on a different setup, or even a different room might contribute to the sound of a record. So it's not entirely reliable, but it gives you a good sense of whether it's a good pressing or a bad pressing. So we've got another insert here. Oh, wow, look at this. AC/DC, Highway to Hell. But yeah, as I say, good old hard rock, lots of energy. I first kind of heard AC/DC in the Beavis and Butthead movie, Do America. One of their tracks was in that, and I quite like the sound of the guy's voice, Bon Scott, who was the lead vocalist up until this album, and sadly he died after this album. We have these very, very handsome gentlemen on the cover here, especially this guy. As I say, it's just simple rock and roll, you know, sometimes that's what you need. There ain't a song on this record which ain't about shagging, and I'm fairly sure they only know 5 chords, but you have to embrace that with this, you know, you have to say, well, that's what it is, you know, and... if you don't like it, you can fuck off. You wouldn't expect AC/DC to go and make an industrial synth pop record, would you? You know, you wouldn't go into, say, a pie and mash shop and expect like a wide selection of truffles. You go in for something simple, you get something simple, and you leave very satisfied. And that is what this record is. And of course, if I don't like it, I can trade it down the old Downtown Retro and get half my money back. So... that was it. That was the video. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, especially if you've gotten this far. Fuck me. 40 minutes of me. Well, it's probably not 40 minutes. It just took me 40 minutes to record it because I'm a bit slow. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the end of the video. We could end this video on a bit of ASMR. Goodbye.